Work with the part, work with the part. Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. If you have not been here before, my name is Debbie and I read a lot of books. I have had a bit of an influx of subscribers recently due to one of my shorts, so if you are still sticking around for the book videos as well as the little sketches that I do, welcome! Today I'm talking about the audiobook of Daddy by Emma Cline, and I've read a couple of other Emma Cline books and had an interesting relationship with them. The first one had quite an unlikable narrator, but I still quite enjoyed that one. I'm kind of drawn towards characters that are not the most likeable sometimes. I find like it's a really interesting plot device to have an unlikable character narrating something. And then I also read The Girls by Emma Cline. That was an interesting one because it took a while for me to be drawn in, and then I realised that was kind of the point. With Daddy, it's a series of short stories. I think there's 10 of them in there. And yeah. A man travels to his son's school to deal with the fallout of a violent attack and to make sure his son will not lose his college place. But what exactly has his son done? And who is to blame? A young woman trying to make it in LA, working in a clothes shop while taking acting classes, turns to a riskier way of making money, but will be forced to confront the danger of the game she's playing. And a family coming together for Christmas struggle to skate over the lingering darkness caused by the very ordinary brutality of a troubled husband and father. So yeah, that's just a couple of the stories that's in there. I say a couple, it's 3. That's 3 of the stories that are in there. The duration of this is 7 hours and 21 minutes in contemporary fiction, literary fiction, short stories and anthology. Can't speak. Put the tongue back in the mouth. It's in contemporary fiction, literary fiction, short stories and anthologies. Target audience adults. I had an interesting relationship with these stories. There's a couple that are quite memorable, others not so much. If you are a fan of Emma Cline's writing though, I do recommend these because I think there will be something in there for everybody, really. So I found a thing where it tells you the name of all of the short stories in there. It had a bit of a mixture of reviews on Goodreads with 3.5 stars, with people who claim to be fans of Emma Cline saying that it wasn't for everybody. But yes, so there's What Can You Do With a General, Los Angeles, Menlo Park, Son of Freedman, The Nanny, Arcadia, Northeast Regional, Marion, Mac the Knife, ASL, and that was the last one. I must admit, kind of memorability-wise, I enjoyed ASL and Arcadia. Los Angeles, I think, were the ones that were kind of up there for me. But yeah, so like as I said, like there was some that engaged me more than others. Some, I think, if I was a person to stop reading, I may have done after the first one. But I was just like, no, there's 10 short stories in here, and I want to give them all kind of like a fair trial. But yeah, so there's just a bit of a mix, and I'll admit that Emma Cline's writing, there's a certain style to her writing where I think you just know it's Emma Cline. Like, I haven't seen a writing style like that, and it is very intriguing. It's difficult to talk about these short stories because they are short. I mean, when you're listening to them, I think they averaged from about half an hour to about 45-50 minutes per story. As I said, the duration of it is 7 hours and 21 minutes. That's why I'm saying they range between half an hour and 45 minutes for the 10 stories. And I mainly listened to these as I was doing my walks at work. I've been building up my strength since I injured my knee. And because I'm not doing as long walks, because I was listening to them, not on just the regular speed, I would speed it up because I'm a very quick processor. And I felt like it was enough to cover the walking before I went up to the canteen and got a cup of tea and saw what there was to eat. Kind of bite-sized. Like, they weren't too long, but they weren't really too short to get a story out of. And there was kind of almost like an incentive for me to keep walking. But yeah, as I said, it was just you got a range of things. So like, you're talking about like that masculinity, male power and broken relationships. In the blurb it even mentions moments of misunderstanding that can have life-changing consequences, unexpected violence, depiction of complicated interactions between men and women and families. It's about human behaviour. At the end of the blurb on BarrowBox it says these stories are unforgettable. To be honest though, I think a couple of them were. There's some that I look at and I'm just thinking, I cannot remember what that was actually about. but the ones that I mentioned were the ones that those stories stood out a bit more. Yeah, because they are short stories, I don't want to go too much into them, because somebody on Goodreads has kind of broken down kind of the general gist of each of the stories, so I'm just going to read that to you now. So you've got the first one is: a father frets over his distracted daughter and reflects on life, family during a visit from his grown-up children over the Christmas holiday. Second one is: an aspiring actress who works in a store selling overpriced clothes sells her own worn underwear to men she doesn't know. Number 3 is: a man ruminates his own troubles as he edits the biography of a billionaire who seems set on rewriting his own lifetime achievements. Next one was: an ageing and fading movie man meets an old friend for dinner ahead of attending a showing of the first film produced by his son. Next one was: a young woman hides from the paparazzi following a brief affair with an actor for whom she'd been a nanny to his son. A young man who lives with his pregnant partner and her brother dreams of escaping to a new life. A middle-aged man travels to his son's boarding school to attempt to resolve a problem whilst wrestling with issues in his own life. A woman remembers her first real friend and time spent with her free-living parent as an 11-year-old. A man in his early 50s meets old friends for a meal and then broods over his past and present relationships with women and his financial worries. And then the last one: 2 women attending a pre-rehab centre in the desert becomes obsessed with a male celebrity who checks in. Ultimate summary of these are, like, some had me more engaged than others. I did feel that some of them were a little bit more forgettable. I mean, some of them, the ending was quite abrupt, so when you went into the next story, you kind of forgot you weren't listening to the same story anymore, even though each section was titled and you'd hear the name of that one before you went into it. Sometimes it felt like the stories were blending a little bit. Yeah, there was a point when it was just like, wait, did I finish the other one? Just because of how abrupt some of those endings were. But yeah, I finished it in the car last night because I only had I had under an hour left. And so I listened to it on my way into work last night, so I was at the theatre last night. I listened to it on my way back to the car, and then I listened to the rest of it for my entire journey home, and then I'd finished it like 5 minutes before I got home, to which then I just put some music on. But yeah, it was just really interesting to kind of like think over and think back to even that first story and just trying to figure out like what stood out. And I'll admit there's characters that you like and characters that you don't like, just interesting characters to get your teeth into. Would I read it if it was put in front of me? Maybe I'd have a different relationship with it if I didn't listen to it in audio, if I was actually just reading the words, maybe. But as audio, having been read by Natasha Sudek, I thought that she had a very good voice for these stories. There was something about her voice that really stood out amongst the plot of each of the stories. It was an interesting experience. And yeah, I do think that if you do like Emma Cline's style, you'd probably enjoy these short stories. Yeah, it was just something a bit different. Because as I said, I enjoyed The Guest. That was the first one I read, and I really did actually enjoy that. The girls had an interesting relationship with, and it wasn't actually until I made the video that I realised what that book had done to me and kind of sucked me in, kind of, because it was about a cult and how people can get drawn into cults. It wasn't until I was like really thinking about it that I realised what it had done, and I found that quite clever. There just seemed a little bit of disjointment, is that the right word to use, in listening to these short stories. But I do think that Emma Cline is a magnificent writer, and she's just very good at writing about, especially in these stories, kind of the mundane a little bit, making the mundane a little more adventurous than you think it is. That probably doesn't make any sense. But yeah, I just found them very interesting. So yeah, if you do like Emma Cline's writing, you might appreciate it more in written form rather than listening to it. But I did enjoy the reading by Natasha Sudek. Yeah, Daddy, Emma Cline. Lots of thoughts going on with this one, but yeah. In other books that I'm reading, I'm less than 100 pages from finishing Bridget Jones's Diary, and I've also got book number 2, The Edge of Reason, which I've heard is quite different from the film. But I must admit, I'm really looking forward to talking about Bridget Jones's Diary because, I mean, I love the Bridget Jones films, but there is something about the book that makes me, at the moment, I'm feeling like the book and the movie are on par with each other. I'm just enjoying this. The next audiobook I'll probably be listening to is Into the Storm by Cecilia Ahern. I haven't read a Cecilia Ahern book in a while, so I'm looking forward to getting into that. That one's 10 hours and 51 minutes to listen to. But yeah, I am looking forward to listening to that one. And then obviously I've got a few things on Kindle kind of a couple of series that I'm listening to at the moment. But yeah, so I'm looking forward to going over to the flat later and seeing the boiler. I need to move some money around so that I can pay for things. But yeah, this has turned out to be an interesting day. So thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you're not already. Hello to the new subscribers. I woke up the other day and was just like, wait, have I got like 100 more subscribers? Or am I gone completely loopy? And when I checked the YouTube studio, it was just like, no, I have. Because when I look at my analytics, I was completely boggled by it. Basically had 96 subscribers in the past 28 days. But yeah, so thank you for watching, and I will see you next time with another video. Stay safe. I love you all. Bye.